think that happens though, where somebody is not playing enough basketball and they'll go do these rehab drills. Let's say you're doing like pogo hops. You get pain in this low level pogo hop, but you don't get pain when you play basketball. And it's because you're good at basketball. You've been playing for 20 years. And so back to the word calibration, everything fires the right way, co-contraction before the foot hits the ground. Like everything is built in. And you're calibrated when you play basketball. And I think there's some of it where you're not thinking about the tendon pain, you're thinking about having fun. Compared to like these low level, like nowhere near the same amount of force in a pogo hop, but you got pain there because you're not used to doing that and you don't perfectly co-contract. So that is an interesting thing, is like free play versus structured training for tendons.
Yeah, and my hands-off nature with patellar tendon, I'm like, go play spike ball, you know, like low level.
Spike ball's helped me.
And the thing is, you can't think of your knee pain. I guess if it hurts, you're gonna think about it. But if it's low level enough and your structure is tolerating it okay, you can't think of pain. You got to think of scoring the point.
Yeah.
And I think the brain aspect is like, they do like, this is the thing, the limiting thing with the research is the little bit of brain stuff they do is they'll do like an isometric on a metronome, or maybe with eye movements. What else did they did another one. Maybe you're looking at your muscles, so like you get visual, auditory, everything. And I'm like, that's just like putting your foot in the water for the brain activation. Whereas it's like, you go play something like spike ball or do some really stimulating thing that's stimulating for your brain. That is really where it's at.
Yeah.
And I think too, going on because when you get tendon pain, I think like looking at the reason why there is pain, like there's something going on within the tendon. And there was this one tendon book I read. The last tendon book I read like 25, but the last one was just a miserable read. I really struggled to get through it. But at the end, they had a paragraph where it was fascinating. They were talking about fascicles within the tendon. So like if you think of a rope, like how you pull on a rope end to end. So the fascicles have all the collagen in them. They're very strong. And let's say you have like 50 fascicles with your Achilles tendon, 50 fascicles within your Achilles tendon. And if someone has tendon pain, you probably got some disruption to some of those fascicles. So I would think maybe like, let's just arbitrary number, 20 fascicles are damaged, and you don't really want to be loading those because they're compromised. So when you go to a pogo hop, because you don't enjoy it, or you don't like, you might be getting some loading in those bad fascicles. But when you go play basketball, it's like your body is so stimulated, maybe it's a compensation thing. They don't want to load those fascicles, and they load the healthy ones. I'm thinking that could be happening. It's just something I entertain. And that book was so old, so they might completely be done with the fascicle talk. But I think when they go and play their sport, they're going to move in the way that they want to move. And then when you make them do the pogo hop, they're moving in a way that you want them to move. Yeah. And it's like maybe now, and that's not a bad thing because now you're stressing different structures,
right?
But they could be stressing the structures that are compromised. And you could, I guess, grade that exposure to strengthen those, because you would want all your fascicles to be super strong.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. And then I think the other thing with sports is just the variability. Like every foot ground contact is slightly different. So you're just strengthening different muscles. And then from the biomechanical side of like having a good strong arch, which protects everything up the chain, I think you get that from playing basketball because of all the lateral and the multi-direction. Whereas a lot of the extensive plyo stuff is just pogo, just one spot or just straightforward. And then it goes back to the calibration thing. Like not everything is firing. And if everything is firing and the foot is strong and the ankle is strong, lower leg, hip is strong, and everything is connected and working together, like tendon pain just takes care of itself, I think. So yeah, I do think variability is a huge thing. And that's why the basketball helps, the spike ball helps. And then there's also the brain component to it as well.
Yeah, and it's if you're going to play for 1 hour, that's 1 hour of the day you're not thinking about your knee pain.
Yeah.
Because the other 23, you're thinking about it.
Yeah, 100%. They say your issues live in your tissues. So when you go have fun, you get rid of those issues. Yeah. Sometimes your life just improves in general when you're out playing. That's a big thing. I did this for like a year. I studied indigenous cultures and just like, what is making their elderly be able to like still squat and still move and still be active in society. And one of the big common trends is free play. like they all still play games. Like they set up their own version of like baseball, and kids play and grandparents play. It's like you need to play for life to stay your healthiest and your happiest. And I think there's just a lot of crossover. Like we try to separate happiness is here, body is here, like everything goes together. And that's another thing with pain with NBA players when they're in a stressful period, whether it's you're not playing enough or trade negotiation, whatever it is, a lot of times just a lot of nagging pain creeps up. And it's like, we need to go have fun. We need to go play tennis. We need to go do something different and just release some stress, because that's probably going to be better for your body than any exercise that we could do right now.
Yeah. The consistent play thing, I had this thought, it could be wildly off, but when you go back to the fascicles and how you load certain ones, and they were saying how those fascicles within the tendon feed up into the muscle fascicles. And then I was thinking, you know that research on the fast twitch overshoot when you rest? Yeah. So when you rest, and I don't know if there's a connection, when you rest, you get more fast twitch fibers. So I was thinking, when you go from usually the tendon rupture, you go from a period of rest to a period of, or not a period, just playing randomly. Do you have the fast twitch overshoot? So now, this could be so wildly off, but I'm like, if your muscle fascicles, I could be so off on this, but I'm like, if your certain muscle fascicles are more fast twitch and some are more slow twitch, and now I guess they would probably all go more fast twitch, but I'm thinking if you had certain ones that were more fast twitch, and now when you go from rest to playing, are you just going to be loading those fast ones and you don't have those slow ones anymore? So maybe now you're only like 20 fascicles are engaging, and the other ones are like dormant, not doing anything. And it's like, does that leave the tendon more compromised? Because I know that fast twitch overshoot, it's like, cool, we get a big spike in performance and we're jumping higher and everything, but is that more dangerous? Does that have a negative to the tendon in that sense? But I would have to dig into what's going on with muscle fascicles and the fast twitch, slow twitch thing, which that's kind of not my thing, to spend all tendon, but
that would make sense. And just the deconditioning in general, like if you're just, if you did get a fast twitch overshoot and you all of a sudden you're operating off all these type 2X, like, and your type 2A aren't optimally trained and your slow twitch aren't optimally trained, you get tired. You would get, like, that's why athletes can't have that realistically, is because you would get so tired after 5 minutes in, and then the muscle would stop working. Like,
yeah, that's it too. Yeah, the muscle, it's like, I think the muscle would get shorter and shorter, and the tendon would have to get longer and longer. Yeah. And now you're just straining that stupid tissue of the tendon that they say it can only elongate like 10 or 15% before rupture. Now it's operating at a longer length, which is going to leave you more prone. So go back to like the addressing strength of everything in the legs when you get a patellar tendon pain. It's also conditioning. Yeah. If you're not conditioned and you go play, and now your muscles are getting shorter and shorter, you're going to be operating at longer tendon lengths. You're going to be prone. I don't know if you... Not many tendon ruptures happen in like that fatigued state in humans. It seems like it can happen in horses because I think you're whipping them and they're forced to run. But for us, we just slow down. And in mice, they make them run. Rats, they make them run. But in humans, it's usually that, like, it's not in the long-term events. I guess I've heard one anecdote of like a marathon runner tearing their Achilles later on in the race, but it seems like it's earlier on in like some type of fast movement. But
like when you're fresher and so you're sending more force through that tendon.
Yeah. But I would say that idea that if you're out of shape and you force yourself to go play, your muscle would just lock up, get shorter and shorter. They see that in horses, that horses rupture. I think horses rupture in that way, but for the human, now your tendon is longer, and just think of the ropes of collagen. You're going to be yanking on them way more, and I bet you that's going to be a negative. So everything matters for a tendon pain. Like conditioning, back in the day, I'd be like, well, why would that even matter? It's all about strengthening the quad, strengthening the tendon. But it's like, just look at if you go play and the dynamics of what's going on muscle and tendon, and if you're just out of shape or you have one piece of the puzzle missing, you're probably going to be pulling on your tendon more, which you don't want to do.